Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good night, wherever you are. This is Ahead of the Curve. We've got a really cool show for you today. We've got Peace Love Music co-hosting. Most of you who watch Bitcoin Live know this legend. And we've also got Jacob from Hermetica. And many of you are going to know Jacob as well. And if you don't know what they're working on Hermetica, you better pay attention because this is game-changing stuff. Before we get to that, though, I'd like to talk a little bit about our partner in this episode. Many of you heard of them as well, Velar. In fact, we just got some numbers from Stacks Pulse. Velar is just smoking it right now. Highest user base ever on Stacks, just absolutely killing it. But if you don't know about Velar, it's important that you do because we like to talk about the future of finance here. And Velar really is where Bitcoin grows and goes to the next frontier. For instance, if you're a trader, right, you can go to Velar, you can make swaps. It's AMM, it's great. But bigger than that, Velar has what's known as the perp dex. You're going to be able to trade perpetual Bitcoin contracts on Velar, okay? And you'll be able to do that on Bitcoin layer 2s, numerous of them, right? We've got Bob, we've got BitLayer, we've got Stacks. We're talking about decentralized perp trading with up to 20 times leverage. I'm a degen. I love these things, but if you're more of a liquidity provider kind of guy and you just have less of a risk tolerance, you'll be able to earn just by putting your Bitcoin in so other people can go ahead and make those perp trades. It's a win-win no matter where you are. We're talking about Bitcoin, so we're talking about security. We're talking about DeFi on Bitcoin. You're talking about a movement towards financial freedom. That's what we're going to be talking about today in this episode. You have to understand the root of why all of this is important. It's about bringing Bitcoin and finances and financial services to everyone, regardless of who they are and where they are. The most exciting new news with Velar actually is that they partnered with Xverse wallet, which is the biggest wallet on Bitcoin. If you like ordinals, if you like runes, Xverse is there. So what that means is you can make swaps of your Stacks assets straight from the Xverse wallet, and it's powered by Velar. So you're talking about expanded reach. You're talking about a seamless user experience. You're talking about getting the best, deepest liquidity right there on Stacks. So check Velar out. Thank you. We're very happy for their help with this episode. You guys who watch, you guys who follow, you guys who listen, you know how bullish I am on Velar. So thanks. And let's go ahead and get to this rest of the show real quick. So, well, let's see. Peace, man. How you doing today, brother?
Awesome, man. Awesome. Had a great time on the Bitcoin Live hangout yesterday, and just chilling this morning, trolling the Twitterverse, all the cool stuff going on out there, man, in the stack space especially, and super excited to talk to Jacob about what's going on with Hermetica. A really interesting project. Really cool stuff. But
100%.
yeah, the organized is growing. We got tremendous following, and we're just super happy to be here. It all started with your show here, so thank you for having me.
It's cool. That's what we're trying to do, man. We're taking something where the sky's the limit, and we're pushing it as far as we can. And you're doing an excellent job with the organized. It's a great service to the community. I'm very, very bullish on independent crypto media. And to see this movement grow and you to just push it so hard is super exciting. Jacob, how are you today, sir? It's a pleasure. I've had the pleasure of speaking to you in the past on a couple occasions. Got to write an article about Hermetica and USDH. Very, very happy to have you here today. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what we got cooking with Hermetica right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jack. Always a pleasure to connect. And yeah, I'm Jacob, founder CEO of Hermetica. I've been in the Bitcoin space for a while, and now we're building a Bitcoin-backed yield-bearing stablecoin USDH, which I'm sure we're gonna get into in detail. So super excited to be here and chat with you guys on this lovely Sunday.
That's yeah, man, same. And this is cool because I think a lot of old hats understand this already. But for we're in a space that's growing just daily. And so a lot of people, when they're coming in and they're hearing these words like Bitcoin backed stablecoin and DeFi and all of these things, what can you tell us about the interaction between crypto, Bitcoin, and stablecoins up until this point? Like why are they important?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question, and I think an important question to understand. Stablecoins are probably one of the biggest products that have found product market fit in crypto. The statistics that I have is that stablecoin on-chain volume is around 70 to 80% of all on-chain volume. So 70 to 80% of the value transacted on blockchains are actually settled in Bitcoin. So it's sorry, it's stablecoin. So stablecoins being sent around. The first stablecoin USDT was launched over 10 years ago and is now I think it's $110 billion in value that's locked into USDT. So there's a very significant demand for this kind of product, and it's very useful to the industry. And why is it useful? Because the reality is that we're still living in a USD denominated world, right? Like we're all Bitcoiners, we're all working towards the Bitcoin standard and seeing Bitcoin as the denomination of the or the unit of account of the world. We're not there yet. It probably is going to take some more years, if not decades. Every contract, every bill, every portfolio today is denominated in dollars, and so we need a dollar representation on chain in order to do the financial transactions that we need to do as citizens of the world. And that's what stablecoins allow us to do. There is, if you look at the stablecoin space, really like one main mechanism that has been used in the past, and that's backing your stablecoin essentially with U.S. Treasuries. You call it your RWA-backed stablecoin. So you essentially hold treasuries in a bank and then issue a stablecoin against the value. That's what Tether is. That's what Circle is. They're about 95% plus of the market today. There are other stablecoins that are outside of the fiat banking system, because if you run this kind of system, you're obviously still in the banking system, and we can talk about why that is potentially troublesome, or why I think we need to diversify away from that. And there's a number of approaches that have been experimented with over the past, I think, since DAI, which is like 2017 timeframe, to bring in stablecoins that are not tied to the fiat system, and that's what we're doing as well.
And so to speak to your point, if you look at like the top 20 crypto market cap, you're seeing stable coins all over. They're important. And it's not just for retail traders. This is, like you say, this is like a foundational level of how cryptos run. And as Bitcoiners, the standard to us is getting to a Bitcoin economy. And so it makes sense to be able to transition away from traditional banking and go into more Bitcoin backed financial services. And so I'm assuming that's why that was the inspiration for Hermetica.
Yeah, so I think that on a high level, what we're working towards is to build a decentralized financial system on top of Bitcoin. We believe that Bitcoin is the most secure and decentralized and therefore uncensorable foundational financial system or layer. And we believe that as the fiat system becomes more controlled and more overbearing, we need an alternative, and we probably need it pretty quickly, because it's the trend is clear.
Yeah.
And so that is the overall mission and vision of Hermetica, is to contribute to building that financial system on top of Bitcoin that we can then rely on as an alternative, as the, whatever you want to call it, CBDC world gets rolled out.
Right.
And so if that's where we're coming from, and then the product that we're building in form of USDH as a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin is because we believe that a stablecoin is one of the foundational building blocks for that financial system. If we want to represent yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, if we're to represent all financial services and products on a new blockchain like Bitcoin, we need a dollar asset, right? And that dollar asset, if that dollar asset is still tied to the old financial system, then we're still dependent on that financial system. They can essentially rug us, right?
Right.
And so that is what we're trying to sever, that tie, where we can have the dollar, but it's not tied to any banking system, and therefore doesn't necessarily have the same risks as a stable coin that's tied to the financial system, the fiat system.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually Peace and I were on a discussion on this network yesterday, talking about subjects that are very, central to what we're discussing today. And in terms of what do you think, Peace, in terms of stable coins? Yesterday we were talking about even how the US dollar isn't really technically the petrodollar anymore, and that was kind of like a big deal. They're moving away from that. This all makes a lot of sense.
Right? The petrodollar situation is in danger, although it's not going to go away quickly. It takes time to unwind that kind of integration into the monetary policy and the monetary system. But I've seen it presented as the U.S. establishment sees the establishment of a U.S. dollar stablecoin such as USDC and USDT, and maybe a separate central bank digital currency based on the dollar, as a means of further establishing or supplementing dollar hegemony as the petrodollar declines. So I do see that they will adopt them, but also the concerns are that they're controllable, they're highly regulatable, insurable potentially. So something which they're building at Hermetica is really interesting. It's very different. Jacob, I'm not really clear exactly. I know it's Bitcoin backed, but how do you peg it to the value of a dollar? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just shortly to your point, I think that it's clear that the US dollar is still the unit of account of the world, and it's going to take a long time to get away from that. And that's also why we chose to launch a US dollar stablecoin. But it is also clear that parts of the world are moving away from the dollar, right? If you just look at, for example, Russia, which has been like completely sanctioned and is not able to transact through the SWIFT system, they actually came out, I think it was like a week or two ago, and said that their citizens are now allowed to use crypto to transact cross borders, which is obviously it's a big deal, because basically, invention is the mother of necessity. As the fiat system, as the Western financial system becomes more restrictive, and it's already extremely restrictive, but it's probably becoming more restrictive even, there's going to be the need for alternatives. And that's what we're seeing on the global scale. So it's a very interesting development there. To your question of how we are pegging USDH to $1 is a pretty simple mechanism. We use Bitcoin, and since Bitcoin is super volatile, obviously there's really two ways to do it that I know of, and that has been tried on in the stablecoin space. One, you can over collateralize, so you can take $1,000 worth of Bitcoin and then issue, let's say, $500 worth of stablecoin. And now, what if the price of Bitcoin moves down? You still have room basically to maneuver. That is one mechanism that a lot of protocols have used, and I think it is an interesting approach. Has some benefits, some downsides. We can talk about that if you're interested. The approach that we use is that we pair Bitcoin with a short perpetual futures position. So we essentially take Bitcoin into the protocol, and then we sell the same amount of shorts, or we go short on the futures market. And essentially, we hedge out any exposure to the price without relying on any other asset. So if the price of Bitcoin goes down, our futures contract is in the money and essentially hedges out any loss, and the same on the other side. And that allows us to do a couple of things very effectively. One is that we can represent the whole value of Bitcoin on chain. So if one Bitcoin goes in, it's like 54,000 right now. We can issue 54,000 USDH on chain. We don't have to over collateralize. The other element is that we don't have any leverage in the system. If you over collateralize a stablecoin, you're essentially creating leverage, and you have to manage that liquidation point, right? If the price drops, let's say one Bitcoin goes in, it's 54,000, you issue 30,000 worth of Bitcoin. If the price goes close to 30,000, then you have to either add more Bitcoin or you have to pay back the stablecoin. And that is, in our opinion, not the best user experience, because as a stablecoin user, you just want to hold a stablecoin.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not like a Luna dollar where it's a burn. You have to burn, and it's not a mechanism where you have to burn. Yeah. So it sounds like it's a little bit complicated for most people, but you're basically able to more efficiently use all of the Bitcoin that you're putting in there because you don't have to over collateralize, and it mitigates leverage risk in the system as well, which is what collapsed Luna, right? That was exactly what the problem.
Luna had a lot of problems.
Other issues too, Luna, right? But it's
Luna was a Ponzi scheme, that's essentially.
Yeah. But your scheme actually goes the opposite way of how that was even designed to begin with. It cuts that off because you're not over leveraging, because you're not subject to the price fluctuations relative to supply of the stable dollar this way, right?
Yeah, exactly. We use the futures markets to take out the exposure to price. That's how you can think of it on a simple term. And that allows us to represent 100% of the Bitcoin on chain as a dollar. So it's very capital efficient. There's no liquidation. If you hear futures, you usually think about leverage. We use futures to eliminate any price exposure. There's no leverage in the system. And then there's obviously a cherry on top, if you want, a very nice side effect, actually generate yield.
To be.
Say again.
Yeah, you cut out a little bit there.
Yeah, that's actually like yeah, sorry. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
I feel like I might even be a little bit behind. I apologize if I'm a little laggy, but yeah, I was just saying, very interesting. It's a very interesting concept. But yeah, typically futures products is almost designed as a hedge system. It's not really supposed to necessarily just gamble.
yeah.
Could have fooled me.
Historically, futures, if you look at the history of how futures markets develop, they're certainly not for gambling. They were used by producers of commodities to hedge out their exposure to the price of the commodity. But now, especially in crypto, they're obviously very much used for gambling.
Right. And you're talking about very cool subject matter. We're talking about the transition away from fiat into Bitcoin, which is the whole point from day one, basically, to decentralize, well, for lack of a better word, power, control, separate money from the state, all of these things. And these are important things. And so a lot of people, when they conceptualize Bitcoin, especially today, especially if you don't know much about it, but you're starting to hear it because it's kind of a political issue. Some people just think, hey, we're going to get this Bitcoin and I'm going to hold it. And, the number's going to go up, and this is what's important. And it is in and of itself, that's important. But a lot of us believe that a whole new financial system can be constructed on top of Bitcoin. And, we tend to call that decentralized finance. So as someone who has been in this space a long time, like I said, we've spoken before, you're a very intelligent man. You've been around, this stuff. I am so interested to hear what you think about DeFi. What does DeFi on Bitcoin mean to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a very big question. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at the financial system, it's just a bunch of technologies and a bunch of companies offering services on top of that technology, right? Like if you work with Revolut or some of these like TradFi services. They're just essentially an interface for the fiat system, which is like Swift banking or central bank rails, right? There's rails, and then there's interfaces and products on top that offer specific services to users, like borrow lending, like a savings account, like access to the stock market, etc. And so whoever controls the rails has ultimate power over what happens within that financial system. And in my opinion, and in my experience throughout living all over the world, I lived in Africa, South America, Europe. I grew up in Europe. I lived in the US for a while. Like, if you control the system, if you control the money system, you control the people, and therefore really most of what happens within the world. And so in my opinion, we need to create an alternative, as the system that is being used today is becoming more and more used to control populations and frankly used to enslave people. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
We need to have, or that's our mission, is we need to build a system that people can go into that has ideally a better user experience, but is not, and most importantly, is not controlled by any one central entity. And that is what Bitcoin is at the end of the day. Bitcoin is two things in my mind. It is an asset, BTC, and it is a network, Bitcoin, right? A node network, a miner network. And those are two different things. And BTC itself is extremely important because it is, in my mind, a gauge for the printing of the central bank. It is like that. It is essentially showing everybody in the world how much central banks are printing, because as soon as they print, the price of Bitcoin goes up. And so they can't hide it.
Right.
That's one. And it's a really important asset, and everybody should hold it. And the purpose of it is mainly holding it right now. But then there's Bitcoin, the network, which is a decentralized network of computers that we can build on top of, and we can use to create a financial system that is not controlled by any one central authority or government, that can represent financial services that allows folks to do what they do in the traditional world today.
Right.
We're not there yet, but that's where we're going.
That's the goal. And so we're sitting here talking, and just in the past couple minutes, you've basically explained why people can buy a house 30 years ago for a can of peaches, and now it's worth $3 million. It's not because the house has magical materials that have appreciated in value over time. It's because they've printed so much money. And people are starting to learn that. Like you say, that was a very good point. I never conceptualized it that way, that Bitcoin actually reflects the reality of central banking via its price action. And then when you talk about the network, I think that is a good way to get into the next part. So obviously someone can hold Bitcoin. They can go to Coinbase, they can get it, they can hold it, whatever. How does somebody get USDH, and how does somebody use USDH?
Yeah, great question. We're still very early, right? We're like rolling out the product, and it's been around for like roughly 2 months. So if you want to hold USDH today, you can buy it as a rune on Magic Eden or DotSwap, and you can hold it in your Bitcoin wallet. You mentioned Xverse earlier. You can hold USDH in your Xverse wallet and trade it against Bitcoin. That's really what you can do today. You can also come to our website and stake it, and then earn the yield that is generated from the short perpetual futures position. We can talk about that more. We are about to release USDH on the Stacks network, which we're very excited about. There's a lot of interesting stuffs happening in that ecosystem. And so you'll be able to buy it on Velar and swap it for other SIP10 tokens, other Stacks assets. And then also potentially use it as a margin for perpetual trading, right? If you want to trade Velar or Bitcoin perps, you could potentially use USDH, and you can borrow against it. You can lend, you can borrow it on Zest. So we're about to essentially integrate it across the Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem, so you can use USDH in all your favorite applications and do the financial transactions and interact with the products that are live today. That's coming in, the next couple months. So we're very excited about that. But we're still very early in the whole Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem, right? So
100%. And that's very exciting because it's painful to have to sell Bitcoin. You know, when you have to sell Bitcoin for a reason, it's typically rough. And the idea of being able to earn yield, you know, and typically far better yield than you're going to earn from a traditional financial system. This is game-changing stuff. Like when you get to, if you go back to the housing analogy, we talked about houses a minute ago. If you look at people in my generation, your generation, and Peace is actually a realtor by trade. People look at housing as a store of value as opposed to a physical shelter. And the reason they look at it as a store of value gets back to the money printing, gets back to inflation, gets back to not being able to get good returns on money that you try to save in a bank, right? So to be able to hold Bitcoin and then earn just by holding Bitcoin, that is that's a form of leverage that isn't actually degen. It's very responsible leverage. It's a way that people can get back to how people used to live, where you could save money your whole life and then one day hand that money and those assets that you accumulated to your family, and then they could do the same, and you could have generational prosperity. That's the goal, right? That's the opportunity everyone is given on a level playing field. And we look around in our modern world today, and at least I've only lived in the US, so I can't speak for every other nation. I know some nations have it far, far worse. I mean, in places, I've got friends that I'm networked with because of what I do here in the ecosystem and in crypto that live in places like Zimbabwe. I've got a very good friend lives in Zimbabwe. Guys I know in Nigeria, and all of these things. It's hard to even get access to banking services in places like this. So this is so far beyond what people think of in terms of, oh, that's crypto degens, this is gambling, this is that. This is actually very profound, you know, a very profound technology that'll have very profound outcomes for everyone if we get to see this vision that we're all kind of looking at through a glass darkly, that it's going to make a better world for everyone, increase prosperity. That's the goal here, and that's really cool. Peace, do you have any questions real quick, man?
Well, yeah, you said a lot, and I agree with the sentiment of everything you said. Specific to real estate, right now, the capacity to be able to buy and own real estate is the single biggest factor in moving people from a poverty class to being a class of holding wealth. It's the single biggest improver of living standard that exists. What is coming out of the Bitcoin network and the value of the Bitcoin asset is based on the value of the Bitcoin network that is giving people a chance, like you said, to accumulate that same kind of wealth generating capacity to raise people out of poverty and create generational wealth, you know, accumulation that can and a generational prosperity is the word you used, which is actually a great way to put it. But specific to Hermetica, and is it Hermetica or Hermetica? It's Hermetica?
Hermetica.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hermetica. So the process, so you said it's going to be on stacks. Right now it's available as a rune, and I could buy it as a rune, hold it as a rune token. I can use it on your platform now as a rune token, and eventually I'll be able to bridge it to be a stacks token as well.
Yeah, so we're going to be issuing USDH natively on stacks, and there will be bridges from runes into stacks. So yeah, those will be both available.
That's incredible, man. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a huge need in this space.
It's foolish for people to ever get bearish on any new innovation in Bitcoin or crypto in general, because what you see is you're usually seeing a very first iteration of something. So when people are like, oh, NFTs are dead. No, they're not. The NFTs are going to change how we do a whole lot of things in life once they're fully realized. Oh, runes are dead. No, they're not. You go in to use runes, and it's a horrible experience to use them, because that's where the alpha's at, because people are currently right now building out and making these things more user friendly. You know, when we're in this space and we're living and breathing it every day, we tend to get blind to the fact that we're kind of on the bleeding edge of a whole movement, and technology is being built out in real time, right? Like I get to live this on a visceral level with some things I'm involved in. It's you sometimes you just have to build that thing you see in your head, and that takes time, and that's really cool, you know. So it's exciting to see already, because to me runes have been, you know, something that seemed like a great idea from the get-go, and you know, there it is. I mean, you just showed a very good use case, and you know, smart contracts are great too, and it's good to be on stacks, but here we are, like we can already take part in this now, and right there on the L1. To me, that's awesome.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we see ourselves as financial infrastructure, and we have our opinions of what protocols are interesting and have merit, but we want to be where the users are, and we are neutral, right? We're not making decisions of exactly what is good or bad or what technology will work in the future. I don't know, right? I have my opinions, but we want to be a instrument that you can use across all of Bitcoin DeFi. So Stacks is next. We're also going to be on other L2s. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of interesting ones coming. But yeah, the runes protocol is interesting because you can basically use a token on L1, and you don't have to trust the validator network. You don't have to. There's a different trust assumptions. There's also a different user experience, to your point. But it's all trade-offs, and they're all super interesting. And we're, as you said, very early, and we're essentially throwing spaghettis against the wall, seeing what sticks, and running experiments. And I think that is how you actually innovate and how you create new products and push the ecosystem forward. I wanted to quickly touch on the yield, because you talked about inflation, you talked about the housing market and assets. We now live in the reality that if you don't own assets, you're basically going to be destitute at some point in the future, because we're going into massive inflation. I think it's just getting started. And anybody that doesn't hold assets is just going to get wiped out, essentially. And what we provide is the ability to earn a yield that is significantly offsetting inflation, right? If you can have $1 and earn 20% yield on that, that hopefully actually offsets your inflation. I think actually inflation is around the 15 to 20% mark. If you measure it not in what they do with CPI, which is just bogus, but actually in things that you want to buy, like real estate and other assets, then you definitely have a higher inflation. So we're giving the people basically, you can think of USDH as a stable coin, but also as your savings account. Like if you want to just hold USD and not get completely obliterated by inflation, you can hold it in USDH and you get a nice yield on that dollar.
Right. I mean, I can't think of anywhere. I mean, that's why the stock market's as big as it is. At some point in the recent past, people had to go from being savers to speculators to just stay ahead of inflation, like you say. And now we're in a period where inflation is really starting to be painful. It's finally got people's attention. And I tend to agree with your assessment that we're not seeing the worst of it yet. So, you know, to be able to, I can't go to my bank down the road and be like, hey, what you got that's going to give me 20%? They're going to laugh me out the door, you know?
Yeah.
But now, right from my wallet, you know, on my crypto device, I can sit here and do that. That's empowering. And that is decentralization in a nutshell. That to me, I mean, that's the point of it all.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, also, like, we have a really cool community, and there's a good bunch of folks in the community, but we're very small community, right? Let's be real. And at the end of the day, what we need to think about is not how can we get people also how we can get people in the community excited about our product, but also how can we bring more people into our community. And if you have a product that is objectively better than anything else that you get in the traditional financial system, maybe some people want to take a look, and maybe that's something that can pull them into the crypto space, into the Bitcoin space, and get them excited because they can actually earn this kind of yield. So that's also what we're thinking about, and why we're building the product. Because at the end of the day, how you say in technology, you have to build a product that is 10x better than the existing product, and I think we can do that.
Right.
And I think that the technology is getting there now, especially also with the Stacks release coming, etc.
100%. I find that, I'm Gen X, Peace is Gen X, and, so I had boomer parents, and yeah, I've got boomer in-laws. And when you're talking to these folks about Bitcoin and fiat and all of these things, like, they're still in the 1960s mindset, 1980s mindset.
Yeah.
They don't conceptualize money the way that, especially not people who find themselves into Bitcoin, who are like, because you go into Bitcoin because number goes up, but if you stay in Bitcoin, you learn, you get an education, you get more of an education than you ever dreamt of. And so if you're talking to someone like that, it's not landing. None of this is landing. But if you talk to someone like that and you can get 20% on your dollar's value, you're going to get people's attention.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. I actually talked to my father-in-law. He's a boomer. Great guy. He actually holds some Bitcoin, but he gets really excited about potential earning on the dollars, right? Like, if you think about, you mentioned the stock market being so massive. Yeah, the stock market is massive, but there's another market that is even bigger, like orders of magnitude bigger. That's the bond market, right? Fixed income, which is essentially earning a yield on your dollars, right? A lot of it is backed by the government. But what if you can earn a yield and it's not backed by the government, but it's backed by Bitcoin, right? Even better, in my opinion. And so that is the market that we're targeting, essentially the bond market.
Right. No, 100%, because you get right back to it. Governments are subject to fail. Bitcoin is built not to fail. Bitcoin is hard to defeat. So I mean, it's just because you can't touch electrons, don't mean that you're not dealing with something much stronger than than the nation state, because you are. We watch governments fail all the time. We've seen hyperinflation in recent history, and we're gonna see it again, right? Peace, you got anything? Because I mean, Jacob's just here. He's just laying it down, dude. Like, the people who are watching this, you guys are learning, and this is what you need to do. This is why I like doing this stuff. You learn so much. You there, Peace? We can't hear you, brother.
Yeah, I think you muted.
Yeah.
I had turned my sound down. My sister was playing with her, was putting her dog away. Sorry about that. Yeah, man, I think it's an awesome project. It's definitely filling a need in the space. It's a valuable use case that appears to be also not just useful but usable, or soon to be. It seems like actually, so I can actually use this right now. I can go get some runes and stake them, or put into earn yield, and that's usable now.
Exactly.
Which is it's very useful and usable. Something I'm actually probably going to do after this show is go. That's what I love to try everything. I go at least get some and just try to see how it works. But it's what you said is not just, and I love that you took the approach of. Oh, is it? Sorry, I can because it supports runes, right? Xverse. I use every wallet, so I have 2 Xverse accounts. I have Leather. I have I can probably use my USAT wallet, I'm assuming too. Wherever I have the most liquid Bitcoin to put into some dollars is where I can use it from. But the approach of making sure that it's attractive to onboarding new users. I think I froze. The approach where you're building attractive to onboarding users. That's important throughout this space. That's actually the biggest problem we have right now, is how to get more people to the crypto space in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin greater Bitcoin ecosystem, and like Veller's getting in on Bob and the other L2s that they're working on. That's actually, I think, what the deorganized piece is really going to help with too, as far as, and what Jack's doing with his show, where we're spotlighting these projects, and we're also going to be giving, we ask questions from a user standpoint. Like, I couldn't build this. I have a general understanding of how dollars work, but I'm not super savvy on that. So I can ask questions. Oh, so I can do this, X, Y, and Z. And then we have content that's available to just out there for people to find, so that when they're looking about it, they'll find the website, but they'll also find some casual viewers will find some content that points them at this kind of stuff as well. So, and that's the important thing, is making sure that these people have good experiences and safe experiences when they onboard. And so I love to hear that you took an approach to designing your product with that in mind, because that's really what we need more is useful and usable projects and platforms that will help us onboard people into good experiences when they come here, so that they stay here.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's our focus. We want to, our product is very simple, right? It's $1. So we want to, when we're creating a user experience that is very simple, you can buy it, you can hold it, you can stake it, and then you can just use it across the ecosystem. And we want to make the user experience and UI as seamless as possible. I think we're on a really good track to up level the whole ecosystem with like new projects, like also Velar and others coming out that will, I think we're about to I think most people don't appreciate how much is getting built behind the scenes. It's all going to come out in the next couple of weeks. And it's going to be like, okay, wow, we're like, we function higher.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. Like,
yeah, the amount of activity in the space is crazy.
Oh, 100%. And the thing is, you always try to tell people, and it almost becomes like a trope, but you're like, look, you have to pay attention, especially when no one else is paying attention, because that's how you get ahead of everyone else. That's why we call us ahead of the curve, right? You have to be paying attention when no one else is hyped, because when it goes back to that old saying, when the shoe shine guy is giving you stock tips, the day before the crash, too late. You need to be ahead, and you're right. Like, I'm super active in the Stacks ecosystem more than anything else, because I learned several years ago about the value of having smart contracts on Bitcoin. So that brought me to the L2 space from Ethereum and so forth. And, so what you're seeing right now around Bitcoin and Bitcoin L2s, it's almost like if we were seismologists, waiting for, monitoring for earthquakes, like, we'd be freaking out right now. The Richter scale is like going off the charts. Like, it's you can almost feel it. So and then it's just a matter of just a couple of different things, especially when you start talking about, having a presidential candidate in the U.S. who's like, yeah, we're going to buy Bitcoin. We want Bitcoin made in America. We want the most beautiful Bitcoin it's ever been, all this kind of stuff, right? And then you start talking about nation states. You start talking about nation states fighting for Bitcoin. And then so all of this work that all of these various teams from different perspectives, taking something that the biggest criticism people have against crypto, aside from the fact they can't touch Bitcoin or what have you, is what does it do? Well, you're about to see exactly what it does. And if you're not paying attention, a lot of people are going to see it before you, and you're playing catch up, right? So it's an exciting time, man. It's very exciting time to be here.
Yeah, it's cool that you see it that way, because not a lot of people do. A lot of people just jump on the hype bandwagon, and I think right now, especially also with where the market is at, it's like really the calm before the storm. There's not a lot of people paying attention, but the right people are paying attention and are building the next evolution and the protocols and projects that are going to be very important for the next leg of the ecosystem, and also the price. Right? We're still in a bull market, People have forgotten about that, I think.
Yeah. I mean, bull markets have lulls. They it's just part of it. But it's really cool to see that. And Peace, you have anything you want to add real quick?
So the other question I have, and I apologize, I think I might be on a slight delay, so I apologize. But so right now we're going to a time where there's going to be maybe less demand for dollars and more demand for Bitcoin. But every cycle has its peak and a correction. We know we can expect this to happen. So how does that affect the supply and the exchange rate for USDH when, like, if there is like a 70, let's call it a 50% correction?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we're obviously not a replacement for Bitcoin, right? If you want to hold Bitcoin, you should hold Bitcoin. We're a replacement for dollars, and
Right.
there's a lot of folks that want to hold dollars in their portfolio, right? I think a good portfolio is made up of dollars, other assets, meme coins, and Bitcoin. And so we're just providing the dollar aspect of your portfolio, essentially, that is completely outside of the banking system. So you don't have to risk that, and you can also get a yield on it. Now, to your question of how would a significant drawdown in price affect USDH, the honest question is that the honest answer is that if the price drops, it doesn't really change the value of USDH because we're fully hedged. We're not exposed to the price. So no matter what the price does, the value of the Bitcoin, the dollar value of the Bitcoin in our protocol stays the same. Now, a price drop does reduce the yield that we're generating because we're essentially harvesting demand for long leverage. That's how you can think of it. Like, since a lot of people want to be long Bitcoin and we're providing long leverage because we're short the futures market, we're providing basically giving people the privilege to go long, and they pay for that. Historically speaking, that's around 12% annualized that folks are willing to pay for being long Bitcoin. And so if there's a big drawdown, then less people want to be long Bitcoin, historically speaking. And so the yield goes down. But even in the last severe bear market, if you guys remember 2022, that was quite brutal, right? That was like FTX and that whole debacle. The yield of the strategy was still 4%. So it was still a positive yield.
Yeah. No, it's a cool strategy.
That's great.
It truly is. I love seeing, the out of the box thinking, to create. And that's one of the things that's so attractive about being here is, I was talking to my wife the other day, and I was like, in any other industry, you do things and you go from A to Z. This is a defined industry. Most industries are like that. But when you're talking about Bitcoin, when you're talking about crypto, you're really talking about A to infinity. I mean, that's where we're at still. So there's so much that can be done. So much can be iterated on. I don't think I'll see, a peak of where we're headed in my lifetime. I truly don't. I think it's that vast. Some subjects you can get exposed to, and you could be like, man, I wish I could have learned about this starting in my teens, because I feel like I'll never learn everything I can about it. And that's where I feel like we are in this industry with this technology.
Yeah, no, 100% well said. I mean, I've been in Bitcoin since 2016, 2017. And back then it was definitely different. I think we're entering into, if you look at the technological adoption curve, right, it's like early adopters or pioneers, early adopters, and then going into the mass adoption. I think we're at the beginning of the mass adoption. Like, everybody knows about Bitcoin at this point. Like, if you ask my father-in-law, he knows about Bitcoin. He's in his 60s, and he's never used a computer. And so that's certainly a very different stage, but the mass adoption phase is just starting, and it can last for a long time. But I think we are getting into a more mature ecosystem, and like more people, like a lot more people coming in, and that is super exciting.
No, it is. Aside from what you guys have going on at Hermetica, and again, when I learned about the project, I was like, man, this is awesome. I have to learn more. Aside from that, what else are you excited about these days with what's going on? Without, you don't have to spill any alpha, just in general, what gets you excited right now?
About the ecosystem in general?
Yeah.
No, spill the alpha.
Spill the alpha. Like, drop it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of really cool projects building in the Stacks ecosystem, in the Bitcoin ecosystem. A lot of them are more my friends and investors in Hermetica, so I'm close to what they're close to them and seeing what they're building. And there's a lot of cool stuff getting shipped. I think the Vela guys are building awesome stuff with the perp decks. I'm obviously a futures trader, so I'm very excited about actually using that myself. The Zest guys have just released their Bitcoin BTCZ, which is like using Babylon under the hood, which also is super exciting. I think Bitcoin staking is also very interesting for us because we are already thinking about and planning to integrate the staking yield into our product. So you can earn the yield from the funding rates, but you can also earn a yield from staking at the same time on the USDH.
That's where my head's at more than anything else, because what we're doing, we're building. I won't spill too much alpha. For what we're building with Rue, we're building a DeFi application with that in mind, right? Like this is what and this is where the trend's at, and it makes total sense. I really like the idea of staking, and then like you say, being able to draw two forms of yield from the same investment is wild. I mean, it's really cool. Peace, what you excited about, man? Or you got anything you want to ask?
Oh man, I'm so excited about everything going on in the space. I love what Jacob's got going at HermeticaFI. I think it's a really great concept. I love what you have what you're building with Rue. The Invaders Mint was super cool. There's so many other things. I mean, I could start rattling stuff off. We're talking about who's got the moistest or freshest socks lately. Man, there's so many things going on. We got the Tacovasion, the Stack Link project, my deorganized stuff. We got stuff going on BNS, the Zero Authority DAO guys. I can't wait to see their V2 stuff and all the stuff that's going to open up. There's just and he mentioned Zest. We're talking about Velar. There's so many things going on. There's my deorganized, quick and dirty website, so I can start posting some of these videos. And that's another thing. There's just so many things going on. There's not enough time to keep up with everything, but what a time to be in the space, right? I'm so bullish on everything going on, especially with stacks, but everything Bitcoin is awesome right now.
I've got two things I want to say that are only tangentially related to the subject matter. First of all, fun fact, the first thing I ever wanted to build when I decided I wanted to build something was a decentralized media platform. So like the fact that you're doing that, is beautiful to me.
We're doing it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then the other thing is, y'all know that, because meme coins came up and people don't quite know what to make of meme coin. I have my own thoughts that would take a little while to get through. But this morning, I believe it was, I flipped on my phone, and the Hawk to a Girl, that meme that came out about 2 weeks ago.
Yes,
right.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. I saw it
on that thing, girl. Yeah, everyone went nuts. You couldn't go on Twitter, social media without seeing that. She's got her own podcast now, so like that immediately made me think like this memes are like the new way to celebrity, right? I mean, that's this when you're talking about where we're at, between hard money, between the reevaluating the way we look at politics and government, AI, entertainment, all of these things, we're really on the precipice of, massively changing dynamics in the world. So, there's just no there's no way to really to be anything but excited. I don't know how anyone could be black-pilled right now. And that graphic is funny. That was from the Node Rocks collection. It was something that got rug pulled by some jackass, and we unrugged it, and that's probably my favorite meme from it, right? That was great. But yeah, anyway, I digress. I thought
that's one of the OGs from the unrugging. Yes, played Nick.
It is. That was a good one too.
Who is this? Who is this creative meme maker?
Oh, I don't know. I think we're a little closer to him than we realize. I
Jacob, Peppy Toshis everywhere.
This has been a lot of fun. Anything that we can do in terms of spaces or anything like that, I'd love to go ahead and help get the word out, because my thing is, even when you're tuned in, like we all are, you still don't know everything that's going on, especially if your head's down building.
Totally.
Much less if you're just kind of new and this is all crazy to you, right? You still don't even know the vernacular. So anything that any spaces, anything like that, I'd absolutely love, and I know Peace would love to have you. And this has been an exceptionally good conversation, and I think that people who watch this are going to learn a whole hell of a lot. Do you have any thoughts you want to leave us with today?
No, I mean, thanks for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. You guys get it. You're like deep in the trenches, building yourself, creating the community. So really excited to do much more with you guys in the future and spread the word. I think we're on the same mission, right? We want to educate. I see myself as an educator to some degree, because we can build a product, but if the product is not understood well, then nobody can really want to use the product. So I want to educate folks of why it's important to have a dollar as outside the banking system, why it's important to have it on Bitcoin, etc. So really thankful to getting the platform that you guys are providing. And in general, I would say anybody that is listening, now is the time to get really active. Now is the time to actually, in my opinion, buy. I'm buying. Because now is the time where everybody's not paying attention or doom posting. And that is, I've been through ups and downs in many cycles at this point, or like at least two. That is the time when you really have to hit pedal to the metal, and you get rewarded in the next 6 to 12 months. And so that's what I invite people to do. And obviously come on, check us out at HermeticaFI. I would encourage everybody to sign up to our waitlist. We actually have something very special planned for folks on our waitlist, and our email waitlist. You can go to hermetica.fi and sign up there with your email, and you will be, people on the waitlist will be the people that get access to our product first, and also get special perks and really interesting information and content delivered to your inbox. Then obviously we're on X, etc. And if you have anything that you want to chat about, reach out. My DMs are open. I want to know what people think. I want to know if you try the product, please let me know what you think, because it's very early. I always want to understand how we can be better and iterate on the product and make a better user experience. So, anybody that wants to share anything with me, please do so. And yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. How about you, Peace? You got any parting words?
Awesome. I think, to what Jacob said is absolutely right. Now is the time to be building and getting involved and participating in as much in this space as you can. The energy and the collaborative spirit that's going on in this space is great. As you know, the deorganized team came out of D grants, and then we were fortunate to hook up with Nick and Bitcoin Live, and it all sprang out on you having me on your show, and that sprang out of me being part of the Rue community. And get involved in the communities is what I'm saying. And right. Participate and support the people that are building good projects that you like, because that's how you find your place in the system. You know, now is the time for that. And thank you, Jacob, for coming on. Thank you, Nick, for having us. Thank you, Jack, for just being. You know, you introduced me as an absolute legend, but Jack is the legend of Stacks legends in the space. And thank you, sir, for giving us this platform today.
Tell the audience when they can watch Deorganized, man, because every time I turn around, there's a show on.
Well, I've started doing, again, part of this is because of the opportunity Bitcoin Live has given us. We do the morning update every Monday through Friday, right around 8 a.m. Eastern time. It's very loose because we are decentrally organized. That's actually what deorganized stands for. It's not disorganized. It's decentrally organized. So we do an update every morning. We read the Stacks calendar. We talk about what's going on. Sometimes we have guests. You come on sometimes. I got GigaPepe sometimes. Sometimes people come and chat. Staxy came on and made her first live podcast appearance on Thursday. That was great. And then we have our regular weekly spaces we host on Wednesdays at noon. This Wednesday, we're actually giving away a Node Rock. We're having, I think Zentoshi's actually going to come talk with us. Landy's going to come on. Not entirely sure. And then Thursday we have like an NFTFi show with Mr. Wolf and you, and GigaPepe's coming on, possibly Rubes, and with Leo, and possibly Rosa's always an X factor because he's never sure whether he can make it stuff. But we have we're just doing we have every other Thursday at 1:30. We have a podcast. Monday through Friday, we have the Good Morning Show. You're right. I have too much going on. Maybe it's taking me 10 minutes just to tell you the quick update as to what we got going on. But you'll see us out there.
Peace will send you a spreadsheet if you want to know. We got this. But
that's how I got to make a spreadsheet.
To Peace's point, for those of you who are watching, and if you relate to me in this way, if you're like, you really love this stuff and you're really passionate about it and you want to do more, you can. You just have to get involved. You get involved and you'll find where you belong, because you don't need permission. You don't need anything special. You've got your own talents and abilities. You get involved and you find your spot and you help us literally change the world. And that's all I've got. So thank you guys both so much for being here today. Thank you all for watching.
Thanks, Jay.
We'll do this again soon. Thank you to Velar. You guys are awesome. Congratulations on your continued success. It's up only from here, guys, and we'll see y'all later.
Guys.
Let's go.